So, I'm Officer Hunter Gerber, so I work out of what's called the California Highway Patrol Oceanside Area Office. Is it working? Alright, is that better?
Yes.
Alright. So the Oceanside Area Office, we cover all of North County, San Diego. So in San Diego County alone, we have 3 area offices. So us up in North County, down south of us is gonna be the San Diego area, so they cover all of San Diego and just south up to the border. And then down East County is gonna be the El Cajon area office. And then statewide, we have 134 area offices to choose from. So no matter where you are in the state, you can file a police report and everything else. And if it happens down here, it gets filed right here in North County. So my specialty job, other than your basic patrol officer, is I'm the area's what's known as the public information officer. So part of my job responsibilities are whenever we have high profile incidents, we're talking shootings, pursuits, fatalities, I respond to those incidents. I do all the media relationships that go with it. So let's say, there's not an interview, or I need to put out a press release, just giving the media the information regarding those scenes. That's what my job is. The other side of my job is this. I go out and teach all these traffic safety classes. So the one we have designed for you guys is called the Age Well, Drive Smart class. And other than obviously teaching like a senior driving class, I have 2 other main groups I teach out here in North County. The first of which actually just came from teaching. Can anybody guess like which age group or who I'd speak to first?
Teenagers?
The teenagers, they're probably my number one target.
Yeah.
Teenage drivers, because they are the worst drivers out on the road, right?
Yep.
Yep, 6 out of 10 are actually gonna be involved in an at-fault crash their first year of driving. So I have our seniors, I have our teenagers, the other group I just came from. Anybody guess?
E-bikes.
Not e-bike classes,
Lawbreakers.
no, not lawbreakers, I mean, they can be. Think of what's just north of Oceanside. Military, yeah. So military, believe it or not, they're 75% more likely to be involved in a crash than your average civilian. And part of that, what it is it's a combination of youth, because most of the enlistees are right out of high school. They're pumped full of adrenaline and everything else. Stress. So you mix that with driving, it can be a deadly combination. So I just came from Camp Pendleton. I just gave them a lecture for the last hour. Then obviously, so the topics we're going to cover today, 3 main topics. We're going to talk about distracted driving. After distracted driving, we're going to talk about speeding, and then we'll finish up with some DUI and age-specific limitations that occur as we get older. So we can start with that first. So as we age, when we're out on the road, do you think most patrol officers see you guys out speeding and dipping in and out of traffic? No. All right, you guys have been driving a long time. You guys have that experience, everything else. But as we age, the experience increases. What do you think starts to diminish? Usually physical stuff, right? Our fine motor skills, vision, cognitive kind of slows down, right? So that's what this whole lecture is designed. We're gonna incorporate those limitations that we might find as we age. We all get to that certain point where we can't drive anymore, right? But California doesn't discriminate against age. It's all about ability. Does anybody know who the oldest driver in California?
Oh, wow.
It was, I forget, it was Ruth. It's on my slide. She was 104 years old.
Good
Driver's
girl.
license, everything else. She was able to pass all the tests, vision, all that stuff. Yeah, she was driving like up until like the last few months of her life. So she holds that record here in California. So as long as you're reacting, you're doing all your DMV work, you're on top of it, and you feel you're safe to be out on the road, you're good to go. So I'll go ahead.
Do they give you a driving test after a certain age? Or like at 80, you have to go in and get a new license, but like if you're 85 or something, or 100, did you have to take a driver's test?
So not the behind the wheels test.
Okay.
It's all written. So that's where, once you turn 70, the DMV at some point, whenever your license is due to expire, that's when they're gonna send you that notice. You have to come in. Actually, I don't think you even have to come in anymore. I think you can actually do it online.
Oh.
That's what I've been telling a lot of the different DMVs. They're allowing you to go that route. So if you're able to, I'd rather do something online than driving the DMV, right?
Yeah.
So we gotta, I do that. And as far as study guides, I've heard the San Marcos, because I just taught one, in San Marcos or Escondido. They were saying they had the old school where you print out versions. They had them at that DMV. I'd still call to make sure, but I think most of the resources for the study guides are all found online now. So keep that in mind too. Oh. All right, guys. Sorry, I'm not used to having this like right up against me. So let's talk about our first topic. Let's talk about distracted driving. So when it comes to distracted driving, I go back to 2019. So that was the last year before COVID really affected our traffic and everything, and before I took over the primary public information officer spot. I've held for the last about 2 years. So that year I wrote 600 cell phone tickets. 600 is actually a little bit over. And that's not including my speed stops and everything else. But I was very proactive. I worked in the afternoon hours, so I worked between basically 12 to 10:30 p.m. So all that afternoon commuter traffic. What do you think the number one call for the highway patrol is? It's crashes, right? Traffic crashes. Yeah. They occur all the time out on the freeway. So, if you can imagine, every time I respond to one of those crashes, it's like having to do homework. Because I have to take a crash, I had to sit down behind my laptop, I don't get to do the fun stuff like live PD or cops. I'm sitting there, typing, it's like homework, I call it. So that's why I wanted to take a proactive approach against distracted driving. So like I said, over 600 cell phone tickets, I got really good. I actually started developing nicknames in ways people tried to conceal their cell phone use. So the first one I always called was cell phone ejection. That'd be somebody would be on their cell phone like this, because talking on speaker is just as illegal as this, right? They're usually like this, they'd see me, they'd take their cell phone, you just chuck it. So, and actually I pulled over a guy once in a pickup truck, where as I was walking out, this 4-year-old in his little booster seat was rubbing his forehead.
Oh no.
I can see that little call-ended thing, on the floorboard. So, the other type of concealment, I always like to call it the Jurassic Park, because it involved basically coming up to a traffic stop. So, you have your party right here, I pull up right there, I look over, they'd be on this or this, they'd just look at me, they'd just freeze. They slowly kind of just try to as a T-Rex. The other one was just like, I just call it the Tower Terror because they see it, and you just try to drop it, right? So, back in 2019, I was coming out from our San Diego office, so I was traveling on the 15 freeway. So if you guys are familiar with Rancho Bernardo, Poway,
Yeah.
we have our carpool lane and then the general lanes, right? We have that nice wall that divides the two. So I was coming up in the carpool lanes, and I see this young woman in a minivan. She's driving in the regular lanes. There's a wall between us. It's probably about 30 to 40 feet from each other. I was side by side with her for about 3 miles. Never saw me. I wasn't even looking to pull anybody over. 3 miles, trying to get her attention. And I'm in a big SUV. She's just talking like this. So the wall finally opens up.
Oh no.
I get behind her. At that moment, I could tell she saw me because she went from this to this and just froze for about 2 to 3 seconds, right? So as she was like frozen, I was thinking in my head, okay, what's she gonna do with it? What's she gonna do with it? She took her cell phone, started pretending like she was coming in. Just like you guys, I started cracking up too. So I get the lights, I pull her over, take her off the freeway. As I get out, I introduce myself. I'm Officer Gerber. I stopped for being on your cell phone. She proceeded to tell me that she was talking to her grandma because she was in and out of the hospital, and she just wanted to check in on her. But I wanted to know why she's combing her hair with her cell phone. Never saw that. So, I just kind of thought in my head something a little witty. I said, hey, did you download a new app for your cell phone? She kind of looked at me all puzzled, as most people would. So I just rephrased it. I said, hey, did you download a new hair combing app for your cell phone? At that point, she started, laughing. I was laughing. What do you think I did next?
Wrote her a ticket.
Yep, I gave her a ticket, right? So I like to tell that story for this reason. So imagine, you're going 3 miles. What's the one thing everybody's always looking for when they're driving? Cops, right? First thing, they see a cop, everybody slows down, right? It's just instinctive. Even when I'm in my personal car, I see, a motor, it's like, oh, I gotta slow down, right? So imagine being 3 miles, or traveling 3 miles. The one thing you're trying to look for is directly to your left or your right. You never see it, right?
Wow.
So that's why distracted driving is very, very bad. So just think about it. When we're engaged in a phone conversation on our phone, where do you think our concentration is going towards?
Phone call.
Phone.
Phone calls, right? So that's where our cognitive is gonna go right to, that cell phone and not driving. That's where that tunnel vision comes in. Our ability to multitask is all a myth. Alright, so let's do a little game to kind of demonstrate this. We're gonna say the alphabet just A to K. Once you get to K, just count out loud 1 to 11. So A, B, C, D. Once you get to K, 1, 2, 3, all the way to 11. Ready, go.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, not too bad, right? Very, very easy. So now let's just change it up just a little bit. We're gonna say A1, B2, C3, all the way to K11. Ready, go.
A1, B2, 3, 3, 4, C, D, 5, 6, 7. Wow. God.
Whose brain just hit the brakes on that one?
Oh my God.
It seems so easy, right? It's just two little things, letters and numbers. I mean, it should be very, very easy, but our brains aren't hardwired that way. They can't take two different subjects and apply them at the same time. So that's why even like Bluetooth settings, even though it's legal in California, it's still actually dangerous to be in a Bluetooth type setting while driving and communicating with somebody. So just keep that in mind as you're driving. Right? Any questions on that?
Even if a passenger's on the phone and the other person's driving, would that be a problem?
No, if the passenger's on it, it's not, as long as they're the ones holding the phone and everything else. And what's different, go ahead.
Yeah, why would a Bluetooth be more dangerous than talking to your passenger?
Yeah, so what's different is, so if we have a passenger in the car and we're driving and we're engaging conversation, you still ultimately have about 4 eyes down on the road. So even if you're driving, they might see something where you're not. Where when you're engaged in a phone call, we don't even realize it. We'll still like look at the phone as we're driving. So it's taking our vision away. Or typically we're not going to be, just constantly looking at the other. It's a what do you call it?
Distraction.
Yeah, not a distraction, but it's
Divided attention.
yeah, divided. Basically, we're doing it subconsciously and we don't really realize it while we're driving. And it's just been study after study shown. And texting and driving is even more dangerous than obviously talking on it, right? Because when we apply texting and driving, we're not only taking our vision off the road, right? What else are we taking away?
Fingers.
Our hands, at least one hand off the steering wheel, right? But once again, our focus or concentration is not on the driving, it's on the cell phone. And the average text message in the United States is about 4.6 seconds.
Oh.
And if you're traveling at 55 miles per hour, get this, you cover the length of a football field, 4.6 seconds. Huh?
I have a question. Does texting apply? Is it against the law when they're on their e-bikes?
E-bikes, no.
Oh, it's
Fortunately not, because it's like a bicycle
wow.
in that aspect. So now if you get up into like an actual motorcycle, or there's a lot of e-bikes out there, they're class, there's a whole class system when it comes to e-bikes. They're actually at like a motorized like scooter. Once you get to that level, then you can't be texting and riding.
I was told that once that, of course, on your cell phone's illegal and so forth. What about eating or drinking in a car, having a Coke and a hamburger while you're driving?
So that, once again, it's dangerous, it's risky behavior, but it's not illegal to be eating and driving, or another one, doing makeup while driving. Kind of the same.
Wondering now that legal cannabis and driving, that worries me.
Yeah, so when I get to the DUI section, I'm actually gonna address cannabis too. Because marijuana, so essentially they've done, the last 2 to 3 years worth of, fatal crash data were involving, alcohol. That person not only tests positive for alcohol, but also marijuana 44% of the time. So it's up there.
What about smoking? If if a person's cell phone is on the next seat
Huh?
and he's looking at it now and then while he's driving, is that, that's a risk? Is it also illegal?
It's risky behavior, as long as the person's not physically touching that cell phone, it's not illegal. So that's where it's, you know, same thing when it's mounted, you're not touching it, you can do all this stuff, and it's legal, but even though it's legal, it's not very safe. Huh?
So even if it's not like ticketable, doing all these things, whether it's a burger or all these other things, if you actually are found at fault for a collision or hitting a pedestrian or something, I mean, that's actually worse than a ticket.
Exactly, and that, she's actually just got to my next point. So she's saying, even though that it's not illegal to do, you're setting yourself up for risky behavior. So in the event that you hit somebody, kill somebody, heaven forbid, that's kind of the next step. So whenever we respond to those fatal or very, very serious car crashes, like we're talking limbs missing or, you know, somebody potentially paralyzed for the rest of their life, one of the things we do is we seize the cell phones on scene. We go out and we get a search warrant to download all the contents of that cell phone. So keep that in mind. Go ahead.
What about reading a built-in screen on your dashboard, you know, looking for directions that way? That's not safe, and it's legal though, right?
Yeah, so if you're using your cell phone like in a GPS navigation setting, what I always recommend, program it before you're driving, obviously, and then have it to where it's set to where it's a map, kind of guiding you through, and you know, you can have the voice on it saying, oh, make 300 feet, make a left on whatever, you know, street. Does that make sense? That's what you do, so that way you're listening, you can keep your eyes down the road instead of.
So that's considered safe?
If you're using it, as long as you're not fixated on the cell phone, then it would be.
Thanks.
So, getting back to that other point, so remember, all that contents of that cell phone can be downloaded, everything else. And then we've had incidents where we had a fatal car crash down in the San Diego area. It was involving a semi-truck. It crashed into another vehicle. That whole cab went up in flames. Because everything's downloading, goes to that cloud, all our new smartphones, everything else, we were still able to get all the information off that cell phone. In that particular incident, it was found that semi-truck driver was actually watching pornography leading up to that crash. So, I mean, that, once again, that's very, very extreme. But we also have youngsters, you know, sitting there on social media while they're driving. Stuff like that, or, you know, watching videos. So all that stuff would be discovered, and then not only do you have your criminal for it, where you could potentially go to prison for 10 years, you also have your civil aspect where you're gonna get sued, potentially lose everything you've ever worked or you know got. Does everybody here have has heard of umbrella coverage for insurance? Yeah, I highly recommend go out, because you can get affordable, you know, coverage. I have $1 million coverage over all my assets. It's about $400 to $500 for the year. So it's very, very reasonable. It protects all those assets, everything you worked in life to get, you know, your retirement, that boat, housing, you name it. Have that protecting your assets in the event of a really bad crash, so that way you don't get sued and lose everything essentially. All right, any other questions on distracted driving or? And like I said, distracted driving is not limited to cell phone. Obviously, cell phone's that #1 thing we see out on the road all the time. So just keep that in mind. It can also be applied to doing your makeup, eating, smoking, you name it. Go ahead.
Can I point out dogs in the car?
I can't stand that.
Oh my gosh, dogs on the lap of a driver.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
So I've actually seen where when a little dog gets hit by an airbag in somebody's lap, it's not pretty.
Oh, dear.
So yeah, that had to take it and put it down and stuff. Because I mean, you have an airbag that deploys at 200 miles per hour into somebody else. It's really bad and sad. And once again, it is a distracting because they're up on the lap. They have to kind of keep them back. And I've had another crash where the dog actually fell down and they got pedal confusion. So they ended up driving into a tree. I mean, luckily the driver was fine, but still caused them a crash.
Can you give them a ticket for distracted driving?
Not necessarily. I can pull them over if I can articulate, if I'm behind them enough to where they're all over the road, where I can find a different vehicle code section that kind of apply to that, how they were unsafely driving or unsafe turn or something like that, but for just having a dog in the lap, unfortunately, there's not a specific code where I can just cite for that section.
Is there a way to try to get that to be a code? Because I see it every day.
You have to talk to like local legislatures and
Okay.
stuff. They'd be the ones who draft all the
Just see them
laws for it.
swerving.
Huh?
I just wanted to make sure, you said driving, if your telephone is coming through the speaker in the car, that's okay?
Yeah, so that's that Bluetooth type setting. So if it's pre-programmed, whether you physically hook it up or you have it to where it, wirelessly connects to the phone, your phone to the car, that's fine. And that's why a lot, what is nice is all new cars, they have it to where you can do everything from the steering wheel, so you don't even have to touch your cell phone. So, any other questions on our distracted driving?
I'm an old man, so I don't remember, and you got a ton of information,
How about that?
thank you. But if I were to walk out of here with like one thought and keep that thought in my head for a while, which one would you hope it would be?
Alright, my biggest thing would, don't use your cell phone while driving. That'd be my biggest takeaway because you're gonna save yourself a crash. If you're gonna use it as a navigational purpose like GPS, pre-program that and then have that cell phone on that do not disturb mode or driving mode, which a lot of there's apps and functions. iPhone already has it built in. Put it on those settings and just keep it there. That's your best bet, so that way you're not even, tempted to grab that cell phone. Another great point, just let your loved ones know. So, hey, I'm on my way to the grocery store. Text them. I'll be there. I'm on my way home. So that way they know where you're at, and say, hey, it's in driving function. So that way you're not, tempted to grab that cell phone. That'll save you the headache. And the most important thing is getting you to and from wherever you're going safely. Sound good?
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, so let's talk about the next most important topic. We're going to talk about just speeding and driving in general. So I'm not worried about you guys speeding out on the roadways, generally speaking, right? But speeding is the number one cause of crashes, nationwide. For you guys, it's a combination of not necessarily speeding, but maintaining the proper following distance between the front of your car and the car in front of you. Does anybody know what the average human perception reaction time is?
2
It's about, so a little under 2 seconds, so it's about a second and a half.
seconds.
So it takes our brains 3/4 of a second to see something, like perceive it, and another 3/4 of a second to act upon it. So if you're driving down the road, a ball gets kicked out in front of your car,
Oh, God.
it takes your brain to go 3/4 of a second going, oh crap, there's a ball on the road. Another 3/4 of a second for your brain to send that signal down to your foot to hit the brakes, right? So we have about a second and a half time gap. That's why it's important to drive slower. So when we're out on the road, whether it's the residential streets or the freeway, we've developed a rule that's called the 3-second rule. So prior to me getting to the 3-second rule, all right, who here was taught by the DMV that when you're driving, because this is what I was taught, that for every 10 miles per hour faster you go, you should add another car. Yeah, right? That's what was taught for a long time. Well, everybody's sense of distance is a little different. So what we've developed is called the 3-second rule to kind of help. It's not really distance that's the factor, it's the time. So if we're out on the road, that 3-second rule states this. You should keep a 3-second buffer from the front of your car to the car in front of you. And how you do that, it's very, very simple. If you're out on the highway or roadways, find a set marker, something easy, whether it's a tree, welcome to Encinitas, an overpass. The front of once that car in front of you passes that object, just start counting in your head. 1001, 1002, 1003. If the front of your car passes that same object before, you just kind of back off a little bit, right? So very simple. So just start counting 1001, 1002, 1003. All right, cool. I got that buffer between my car and the car in front of you. Obviously, in California, that can be very hard, especially during rush hour traffic. Because what happens if you keep that nice buffer
Somebody cuts right in.
Yep. So you're gonna have to constantly kind of keep that distance, or even just moving over from the, number one or fast lane, just over one lane, so that way you can maintain that. If everybody out on the road actually followed that rule, I'd say we'd cut the majority of crashes out nationwide. Now, do you guys know what the number one cause of crash for people over 80 is?
Too slow.
That's probably pedal confusion. We'll talk about that in a second.
Driving too slow.
Not even driving too slow, it's actually intersection. So if you guys can imagine an uncontrolled intersection, so it's usually people making left turns, right? And what it is, so as we age, that's where those physical, abilities can kind of happen. So if you think about it, our sense of distance might be a little bit off than when it was when we were younger. So, and even just somebody traveling, because sometimes it's hard to see like a motorcycle is coming, or gauging to see how fast another car is coming. So I actually have a really good video of it. So a person's trying to make essentially a left turn. As he's trying to make a left turn, another car broadsides that car. And actually at that 80 years and above, because those are very, very severe crashes, just where the impacts occur, there's a lot of fatalities associated with the older age, getting broadsided by another car. So that's why it's important. So we've adopted what's called make 3 rights to make a left. So it works great when you're in like, a city where everything's a nice grid, but when you're out in country roads, whether Valley Center or Rancho Santa Fe, this could be a little bit more tricky. Essentially, you go up to, instead of making a left at the light where it's uncontrolled, you go up to the next light, you make a right, go to the next light, make a right, back to that same street, and then you kind of go through. Does that make sense?
Oh, that's neat.
It's easier when I can show it up on the screen.
Oh,
You
that's
just kind of go up and around instead of trying to make a left turn. And that's mostly for uncontrolled intersections. Because if you have a light, at least that stops everybody. So now, on that same topic, so at intersections, this is another very important one. So as soon as, you're the first car at that intersection. It's red, and then obviously it changes to green. The best thing to do is just gun it right off, the bat, like it's NASCAR.
Nope.
To go through the intersection?
Nope.
No, so give yourself a couple seconds, definitely make sure you're checking left, right, and then I always say just double check one more time left before you proceed right through that intersection. Especially here in San Diego, and where I started was up in Orange County, that was even worse. So many people like to try to catch that, last,
Yellow.
and yet they're blowing like a really, really bad red light. So just save that headache, look left, right, left, before you proceed through that intersection. Any questions on that? No. Does everybody here wear their seatbelt, I hope?
Yes.
So believe it or not, California, we have a 97% compliance rate when it comes to seatbelt. Now, my great grandma, she passed away probably about 5 years now. She passed away at like 96 years old. She was driving up until about 94 years old. But the one thing she never did, she absolutely hated, was wearing her seatbelt. They actually, like right before they took away, or basically my grandpa took away her license, she had gotten a new car. That new car, obviously a lot of them, when you don't wear your seatbelt, start dinging, right? She hated that. So she actually physically cut the seatbelt so she could buckle it in, and then when they found out, they're like, no, you can't do that.
Oh my God.
You gotta get that fixed. So her way of fixing it was she safety pinned the seatbelt back on, so she was wearing it, but it's like, a cut seatbelt with safety pins. So they finally had to take that to the shop, and it was about that point, they're like, okay, you're done driving. So just for your safety. But wearing your seatbelt is very important, because that 3% that don't wear their seatbelt in California, they account for nearly 50% of our fatalities. It happens all the time, because it's a combination of people getting ejected, and people think that's like the worst thing that can happen.
Ew.
But what we see oftentimes is this, they get pushed forward, they don't necessarily get ejected out of the car.
Ew.
They're gonna hit that airbag that's traveling at 200 miles per hour, or if it's a car without an airbag, they're hitting essentially, a hard object, whether it's the dashboard or the steering wheel. And all it takes is a 35-mile-per-hour crash or greater, and our body's just hitting one of those objects. Essentially what's gonna happen is your aorta artery is gonna separate from your heart. You bleed out internally. I mean, you could be the middle linebacker or, you know, a professional football team, it doesn't matter. It's just that type of physics and impact, that's the result of it. Alright, so any questions on speeding, intersections?
There's a question here.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question on parking lots. What's the question?
I don't know, how do we get through those? They're my words.
Oh, okay. Parking lot. Yeah, so when it comes to parking lots, that's actually one of the slides I was gonna show up to earlier. So there's a couple things that goes on, especially as we age. One of the biggest factors in parking lots is pedal confusion. So that's where we think we're on the brake, but we accidentally hit that accelerator. So it's always important when we're in a parking lot, because we wanna go nice and slow, because there's a lot of pedestrians out there, is literally just kinda tap on, make sure you're on the right pedal to begin with. And navigating parking lots, each parking lot's kinda unique, but when you're in your busier business ones, try to stay towards the back. That's easier just because you're not fighting as much traffic, not a lot of pedestrians are crossing. So if you go through the back and then just kind of work your way in to a parking stall, that's a lot easier and safer than going through, you know, the front. Let's say you're at Target or Walmart. There's a million people just going back and forth, right? If you stay towards the back and then kind of use one of those lanes to come down and find a spot, that's the best way to go.
Use the back.
So, that's a good question.
Can I add just something to that?
Uh-huh.
We've had discussions about senior health, and this is a big one. Because as seniors, we can park right up near the front, right? Isn't that great? Guess what? You're lazy. You're lazy and you're missing a chance to do your body a favor. Make it a short walk. I'm telling you, and you're gonna hear this coming up in the next few years in medical profession. If nothing else, when you go to the grocery store, park the furthest way away and walk up and look at it as not a trip to the grocery store. Look at it as a moment to exercise a bit. It'll keep you living longer. That's it.
Yeah. No, it's actually funny on that. My wife's a fitness trainer. That's like the first thing she tells everybody, no, you don't park in the front, you know. Like, why do you guys sit there and like fight each other for the, you know, you're at the gym here to work out.
Oh, yeah.
Take those few extra steps, it's worth it, you know, get a little jogging, so. No, that's a great point too. So just remember, obviously at the, you know, the front of the store, that's the most crowded areas anyway. You're more likely somebody actually hit your car either backing in or backing out. So you're actually better off parking towards the back of the parking lots for that reason. All right, and so the last topic, I know we started a little later, is DUI. And so believe it or not, it does affect your guys' age group too. Not necessarily with alcohol or marijuana, but believe it or not, the boomer generation is the highest growing percentage of marijuana users in the state. that actually was one of those stats I wasn't expecting, but with it, it's because people use it for different medicinal purposes, right? But, so taking alcohol and marijuana out, what do you guys think as far as DUI? What do you think a lot of your guys' age group is falling into issues? Yeah, the prescription medication. So how we label drugs from a law enforcement perspective is any substance when taken impairs your ability to drive or operate a vehicle. So if you're taking Motrin because you know you have a headache, is that, you know, in layman's terms, oh, it's a drug, would that be a drug we define as? No. Same thing with tobacco. Very addictive, very bad for you, but is it gonna impair your ability to drive a car? No. So, but there are prescription medications out there, especially the pain medications, that it says it right there on the bottle, right? Or
Caution when
Not
driving.
operate a vehicle.
yep, don't operate a vehicle or heavy machinery. So if you see those warning labels, don't take that and then go out and drive. Especially if you know how your body can react, or if it's a new medication, you wanna see how your body reacts to it before you start driving. And all those medications, if you mix that with alcohol, the side effects are that much greater. Because alcohol, it's essentially a depressant. It's gonna slow down your body. Same thing with a lot of the pain medications, because majority of them are those opioids. So, kind of same thing, they're pain stoppers. So it's gonna slow down, and one of the side effects when it comes to those medications is your pupils actually constrict, so your vision's actually getting diminished too. So I've seen people, I mean, they're either on fentanyl or heroin, we're talking like dead of night, they have like pinpoint pupils. Like, you'd be like, what in the world is this? Like, it's just because the side effects of those drugs, that's what happens. And so we have in law enforcement 7 different drug categories. So we have depressants, and that's other than alcohol. So we're talking about like your antidepressant type medications. And we have your stimulants, so at the extreme would be like cocaine, meth, but we also have, you know, your ADHD type medications that would fall into that drug category. We have your hallucinogens, we have your dissociative anesthetics. It's essentially like PCP. It's a lot of like animal type medications that people have used, turned it into, you know, a way to get high. We have your narcotics, and then from there we have our cannabis and our inhalants. Inhalants are like, you know, like think of a middle schooler like sniffing on a Sharpie. That's essentially what that is. Cool, we got it after last 5 minutes. But actually on that, can we get to probably the second slide? Does that have my info? Here, go up one real quick. So I want to make sure you guys can get my email address, because for taking this class today, if you guys are interested, I want you guys to send me an email. Just let me know you're in the class and everything else. With that, I'll send you a certificate for being here. It's good for auto insurance discounts.
Oh, so what's the?
So
Thank you.
if it's not on here, I can.
Okay, California.
All right, just write this down. So it's Hunter, just like the common spelling, Hunter. It'll be dot, then Gerber. And it's just like a baby food. It's G-E-R. Yeah, B-E-R.
Can you say it again, please?
So Hunter dot Gerber, and then it's gonna be the @ symbol. It'll be CHP dot CA dot gov. With that, is there any other questions, or, and it could be driving related or anything else?
Oh, the babies. Oh, God.
Babies, yeah.
Don't get
So,
me started.
California law, there should be no child 8 years or, 7 years or younger in the front seat. So starting at 8, they can
Oh, God.
actually sit in the front seat of the car.
Small adult.
A small adult, there's not really a size limitation as far as adults go, but the safest place to be in a car is actually in those rear seats. So I mean, preferably that's where they'd be. So even though like my daughter, she'll be legally allowed to sit next month at 8, just from like the different studies shown, she won't be, I'm not gonna let her sit up there unless it's some sort of circumstance until she's 12. And just because of body development. Huh?
What about a senior person that they've let their license expired and they're still driving? What do you recommend you do with those people?
Put them in jail.
5 years in jail.
Yeah. So I'll tell you the consequences. So in the event you got pulled over, essentially your car could get impounded for up to 30 days. Typically we do essentially, it's a certain section where we tow it, and then you have to get somebody with a valid license to get your car out. So that way you don't have to wait those 30 days. Best practice, just get that license done or get it in the process.
And how do you recommend doing that? Go back to DMV to get them to get licensed?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So if you let your license fully expire, they're not gonna let you do all the online stuff. So you'll have to go down to the DMV, fill out the different paperwork to get that license renewed.
If someone is trying to get their driver's license and they have had extensions on their driver's license, so they're trying to take their test, but they have to do it on the computer. but they have your seat with the computer. Instead of going to go to have it, to take the test manually, when it's easy for computers.
Yeah, so that's just right at the DMV. So the DMV now, I know they have the kiosk already like set up, so you can go in, schedule an appointment, and then, you know, when it's your time, they have like a kiosk, you literally can go and take the test up to the, I believe, 5 times. So,
What happens if you have a neighbor that should not be driving but is still driving? Is there anything as a citizen that you can do?
as a citizen, there's really nothing you can do. I mean, if you see them doing something, like if you're behind them driving, you see something really like severe, you can call 911 and report it. Like, oh, hey, this person's all over the road. What I try to do is actually talk to them or try to, you know, get them in one of the classes. That's one of the hardest things to do because, you know, people don't, I mean, driving's a freedom. You know, you're able to go anywhere you want, and you just take somebody's keys away. That's where it can be really hard, especially some people, they don't want to give it up just for that purpose. So there's nothing you can do as a citizen other than maybe reporting their driving if you wanted to. But typically, if we pull somebody over, I have actually a really good video on that, where us in law enforcement, we use it for training purposes, because if we feel like this person's all over the road, we know they're not impaired and everything else, we have a checklist. If this person can't do A, B, and C, we can actually basically give them a DMV re-eval. So we actually temporarily suspend their license, where they have to go to the DMV to get renewed. So they have to go down there, take the test and everything else to make sure they're safe to drive, because it comes down to a liability thing with us. So if we just let them go and they go out and they either hurt themselves or somebody else, we could get sued essentially. So when it comes to hand placement, we're traditionally taught 10 and 2, right? We actually want to have it more at the bottom of the steering wheel because of the airbag, essentially. Because if you have your hand on top or like both of them, the airbag could potentially, you could hit your face with it. So what we like to teach now is more of that 8 and 4 type positions up here. If you're able to. So 10 and 2, or even like a 9 and 3 is a safer bet. A lot of the new steering wheels, they actually, how they have it designed, your thumbs actually can kind of sit right there in the, like the little grooves. That's the safest place to put them.
She's got a little bit more in her question.
Regarding the driving test.
Yeah.
If the person was trying to take the test and they insist that they go to the computer, and they just refuse and say, I need to have a kiosk just to do it.
Hey, that's what I would get. I mean, that's what's hard. It's a DMV specific question.
Because they were sassy.
Yeah.
The person
DMV is hand butter. It just, what I would do, I'd just be persistent and be like, you know, I'm having trouble. I don't really have consistent internet access. I need to do it on a kiosk. Which one have you been trying to go to, the Oceanside or?
Paramount.
Oh, okay, you guys went down to Claremont, because I know the Oceanside one, so it's over off 78 and like near College. That one's a pretty good location, and I know San Marcos is too. So they're at 78 and Barham. It's kind of back in that way. What I would do is try going up to there as opposed to Claremont.
Driving at night, what's your opinion of the yellow lens and glasses? Do they really help?
I've heard they help. I've never worn them to actually be able to gauge that, if they do or not. What I would do is contact like your eye doctor, see what they recommend, and if it actually helps it. I know there are prescription lenses that help with night. So I would talk to them because they're this, you know, specialist when it comes to that.
Excuse me.
It's just a question, on the stretch of freeway on the 5 from Encinitas to Carlsbad, they did new orange and white markers. Why? What's the purpose of that?
So I actually talked to Caltrans. So right now, they're it's actually one of the study sites that are using statewide. It's to designate it as a construction zone. Just so that way it's more awareness to everybody around, hey, this is a construction zone, you should be driving 55 miles per hour. So they're one of actually the spots that's being tested as like a test site. So they're hoping to actually implement it statewide because they like what they're seeing with it.
Okay.
It's just to bring more awareness to it.
Right here at Mountain Vista, approaching El Camino Real, do you think those orange stakes up.
Can you speak up?
Yeah. Wait, can you wait for the microphone, please?
Well,
Thank you.
those orange stakes they put up on Mountain Vista as you approach El Camino Real, can those be crossed, or can people are making left and right turns there, and I just don't understand what the rule is with those. They're orange, they stand about
I believe so. I haven't actually driven through there to.
I can help.
Okay.
The answer is, do you know why they were put there?
I thought it was because you shouldn't cross, I shouldn't turn.
But why what made them think we better put that here?
Car accidents?
Death.
Yeah,
People died over there,
they actually
right?
died.
And it's a dark area at night,
Not
right?
there.
And nobody wants to cross in the crosswalk, they want to cross further down, and they do that at night
So
when
what
there's
is
no
the,
light there.
what is the law there?
Don't cross there, you can't cross there.
And you can't make
Even
a,
if you're right
you
across
can't
the
come
street
out
from
and
the
make a
bank.
left. You can't
No.
come out and make a left.
Wait, where's that?
Go
It's like a
around.
barrier.
So her
Don't do it
question
again.
was, is if there's poles standing up in the middle of the, between the lanes, you know, it's going one way and going the other, and they put poles up to prevent people from making a left-hand turn
Into the
there,
banks.
you know, it's like too many people were making turns and getting hit there.
But they still do
And
it.
so
They still do it.
They still do it, but that's what, it's to prevent it, but it's not preventing it.
Is that in Encinitas?
Yeah, on Mount Vista.
Oh, yeah.
If you see a problem with that, that's where you report it to the sheriff, right here, the North Coast station they have right here that patrols Solana Beach and Salinas. And they can get more of the traffic control, more of the motors out there, so that way they can kind of increase, traffic enforcement.
Spikes there. They could put driver spikes there.
No, I don't have a question, I have a comment. You repeated it's not your car, it's your freedom. Is this on?
I think it's on.
Okay, you know, you hear, it's not your car, it's your freedom.
Oh.
And I'm really taking an opposite view to that now. I know that's like, especially in California, the way. But I really am starting to think of, we're trapped by our cars. If you don't have a car, you're stuck. We have such a driving dependent society, and I think particularly as our society ages, we need to come up with better options. We need to be planning our cities better, we need to be planning public transportation better. I had the opportunity 10 years ago to live in Christchurch, New Zealand for 5 months. We didn't get a car while we were there. My son took a bus to the high school, my husband took a bus or rode a bike to the lab where he was doing something. I did everything for the household with the bus. They had a fabulous bus system. Seniors could ride free between 10 and 3. It was the best time of the day to ride. And all these people got out of their houses, they were going to meet their friends for coffee or lunch, and it was such a interesting thing to watch. Even our landlord, who had 2 cars, I would see him on the bus because he had to go, pick up something for one of his properties, and he would just do his errands that way. It was really mind-changing for me, and I think as a cohort, we need to be making demands on our city governments, our local transportation things. I know that around here there's a real stigma about riding a bus, but many of the other things that are available are just not reliable for people.
You need to talk at City Hall.
I have, but I'm
Hold on a
not
second.
voice.
Hold on a second, guys. All right, so that's exactly the point. Excuse me just a second.
Seriously, I got a call from the guy that he's a broker for my car, right? He says, Rick, what do you want for your next car? I said, I don't care. What cars? He goes, but you gotta come up with something. I said, I don't care. He said, I'm not gonna get off the phone unless you tell me what you want. And I said, all right, I'll tell you what I want. I want a self-driving car. He goes, they don't make those yet. I said, well, as soon as it's then, I need a chauffeur. I hate driving, I'm tired of it, right? But what you're saying is as seniors, we could start, and we're working on that right now, we could start helping by making those trips to the store at a certain time of day. then we can get people working to get you to the store at that certain time of day. And it's not gonna be so much as a Lyft or an Uber, right? But it's gonna say that this is when you need to go, because this is when you're gonna be showing up.
Costco does that
If you're not
already for
showing up,
seniors.
they're gonna go to the next one.
There,
So-
wait, there's another way to do this. As seniors, you can, go to City Hall, you can speak to traffic and mobility. As a senior, you can become part of the senior commission and express your content and discontent. There's also an app, it's called My Encinitas, and I hear what you're saying, and you're absolutely right, and so is Rick. And guess what, guys? It starts with us. It doesn't end with us. It starts with us. If we want some changes, then we need to take action. So if you can remember, go to the senior commission meeting, second Tuesday at 2:00. Go to the commission, city council tonight, Wednesday, and express what you want. That's what we have as seniors. Please understand. You guys and us, we're just getting started. We're the change that we want. So that's just my suggestion, because respectfully, I don't think California Highway Patrol can do much for us. So thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Abby.
Sorry. Yeah, to go along with that, I agree actually wholeheartedly with you, especially they're finally, at least some of these coastal, trying to implement more bike lanes, you know, making more options available. California, the way they designed it was all, you know, car happy, you know, way back in the, you know, late 40s, 50s, and right now we're kind of paying for that. So the more you guys can get involved just in your local community, that's where that voice comes, and then that's where they'll start implementing those things. So my last little thing too, I just want to make sure we throw it out there. We have a very, very awesome and very cool, it's called our senior volunteer program. So everybody 55 years and over, as long as you have a clean background, medical and everything else passed, if you guys are interested in joining it, you guys get to drive a black and white. You guys actually get to help us out with day-to-day activities. Whether it's through traffic control, we put out our traffic radar in local communities. You know, you get to actually, you know, be a part of the highway patrol and just donating some hours. So, I have Bob back here, he's a great help, he gets to come out to all my different activities with me, and we have a lot of different opportunities within our department. So if you guys are interested, I have some flyers, you guys can take a picture of it, contact us if you wanna get involved. With that, thanks for coming out, and seriously guys, I wanna get you those certificates so you guys can get some discounts on auto insurance. It's always my, you know, I love coming out here, speaking to you guys, and if you guys have any further questions, I'll be in the back too. We'd love to answer them.